Hi everyone, Sean Healy, personal development educator and NLP trainer here, and you're watching the Sean Healy Relationship Resourcing Series, a series designed to offer tips, tools, and strategies to bring support to our life and to our relationships. So, welcome to this episode entitled Perfectionism versus Enough. Um, there are messages that we pick up as we grow up, either through our family system or through societal pressure about being the best, being perfect, um, mistake free, all of these kinds of things that can place massive amounts of pressure on us and drive us to try to reach painfully unrealistic expectations. So I wanted to do an episode on this because this is something that's really had a significant impact on my life, even throughout the course of producing videos and my podcast series, Sean Healy Tools. Um, it's never good enough. It's there are so many times when I am comparing myself to the people that I greatly admire, most of which have got 10 to 20 years experience on me and years more time in front of cameras and in front of microphones. Um, and we get stuck in these unrealistic expectations, these unrealistic comparisons. And I find from time to time, my inner critic just tearing me to shreds, and we almost become somewhat dysmorphic. We can't see ourselves. We can't see. We get so fixed in a crippling perfectionistic internal ideal that we actually are not the best indicator of how we're necessarily coming across in the world. And if you've ever had the experience where someone's offered you a piece of praise because they've got an idea about you, and you have something completely different internally about what you're like. One idea that I have about myself is that I really struggle with consistency, and yet others have been known to compliment me on the fact that I consistently put episodes out, whereas to me, I don't, compared to others, I don't put enough episodes out. So when we're driven by perfectionism, this can cripple us from having a go at certain things. It can drain us of pleasure in life. It's the shoulds, it's the messages that we receive from outside ourselves. It's this external expectation of how we should be, and it can really cripple both our ability to deliver material effectively or perform effectively or have effective relationships, and it also drains us of any joy of being in the present. So the other element of this is it can take us past any kind of genuine sense and genuine life balance. I remember, and I talked about this in one of the podcast episodes, something that's really sat with me in a documentary that I watched. I was watching a story about a very prominent business professional, a kind of property and hotel tycoon, and I unfortunately can't remember the gentleman's name, but the series, the documentary, was being filmed about him and his rise to phenomenal success around the 2008-2009 era, and pre the global financial crisis, and then obviously the documentary continued into the global financial crisis and the fallout that happened for this individual through the course of that. But I was really struck by one moment in that documentary where he was just sitting there. And his comment was, because he had 27 hotels, I think, at the time, and his comment was, if I'd only stopped at 15. And to me, that was a real moment of kind of going, he went past what was intuitively and personally enough for him, and went into this, you might say, externally imposed perfectionistic script. And then we pay the price, because if we go past what's enough success for us, then the price tag becomes um, it's a big price to pay once we go past that, because there's only a very small percentage of individuals who are able to pick just one area of their life and find that they are content with excelling in that area till they get to the top of the competence hierarchy in that area. They're top of the tree. They're willing to put in the 16 hours a day it takes 7 days a week to get there, and that is an absolutely acceptable price tag for them to pay. And we see a lot of these individuals often on social media. We see an aspect of their lives, and I'm not detracting from people like that. I have a great degree, actually, of admiration and envy, but what it takes to get there is a combination of your environment and your personality, and aspects of this we're born into, where it's not just entirely nurture here. Certain innate elements of us are pre-conscious or unconscious, and not we can build on what we've been genetically blessed with, such as our IQ per se. We can build on those things, but the basis, if we've been genetically blessed, or we think we're genetically fortunate, maybe you have a certain physical appearance that's very appealing to most. But the reality is, what did we actually consciously have to do with that? We can, dress it up with a bit of makeup, or accentuate. Perhaps I'll pick clothing colours that are complementary to my skin. So yes, we can add and finesse at the edges, but inherently a lot of that that's genetic, and so we have to be very, very careful about the kinds of unrealistic expectations we can set ourselves up for, because the reality is we're likely to experience a lot more failure on the way to success, or if you get to the top of the competence hierarchy, so to speak, then the chances of staying there for any extended period of time statistically become even less. But we're led to, directly or indirectly led to believe that these things are far more achievable and at a much lower cost, emotionally, spiritually, financially, and psychologically, than they actually are. So this is why it becomes so important that we understand what's enough for us. What brings me a balance of, I feel like I'm competent enough in the world, but I'm contented enough, I'm having enough joy from my life, I'm getting quality experiences out of my relationships, yet I've got this lovely balance between, let's say, there are many ways to kind of make arbitrary divisions, but let's say I'm balancing my intimate relationships and my lifestyle with my career success, and I found a level. Could I go a little higher? Sure, I could, but if I did that, then this would suffer too much, and this is about the sweet spot. So we're looking for the balanced zone, and if we're starting more and more to focus on what's enough for me, not what I think is perfect performance for you, because again, we're not mind readers, we don't know. We can twist ourselves inside out trying to reach an external ideal, and that almost is impossibility. That's not to say that we swing in the polarity and go, I'm only interested in what I'm doing. The artistry is to have enough focus on others, but not at the expense of self. The idea that some of us were raised with a kind of a scripted in belief that was taught very directly or indirectly to us through our family system, that our life is for other people, that our life matters if we achieve and we live up to the ideals that others have set for us, rather than my life is for me. And what do I consider to be success in whatever form? What brings me joy, pleasure, contentment, a sense of control and competence, meaningfulness? What's my criteria for that? So that sometimes, and I've certainly dealt with this as a consultant, where people are considerably through their life, but yet feel, one, that none of the choices that they've made are legitimately theirs, and that two, even though they're not making legitimate choices that are organically driven from their own space, they still feel like I'm trying to live for everyone else and I'm failing miserably. So this is where again we need to challenge that perfectionistic standard, um, and start to work towards getting more comfortable with the idea of what's enough for me. Um, and that can bring some anxiety as we work towards getting more comfortable in that, because perhaps we've been running off the idea of crippling perfectionism and a kind of a drill sergeant internally yelling and screaming at us for so long that we're comfortably uncomfortable with operating that way. And so we have to be willing to be in the unknown a little bit as we kind of drop all that off, so to speak, and start to explore what is a life on my own terms look like, and what's enough for me. Enough money, enough creativity, enough joy, enough acceptance of self, enough stability. Um, what's enoughness going to be like? And I think that's something well worth exploring. Definitely could talk about this forever and a day. But like I said, I think the only other thing I want to say about this is if we're coming from a place where we're comparing only ourselves to ourselves and how we are doing the best we can with what we have, but we're working on seeing if we can't take that a little bit further. But if we're operating off that sense of enoughness for self, this makes it easier for us to be in the present moment. Paradoxically, we're probably likely to perform even better as a result because we've taken the pressure off ourselves. We're able to be more in the present moment. We're freer and more flowing than when we're kind of with a rigid, crippling, perfectionistic, critical dogma that we're running off internally. So the irony is I'm actually likely to get better results by surrendering that element. But that also allows me to be in the now and enjoy the now rather than either obsessing about the future and trying to reach some sense of perfectionism that ironically, even if I was to kind of get there, the pressure of then trying to redeliver on that means that I think this leaves very little room to really make the most out of the present moment. And like I said, it leaves us open to crippling standards. And often what's coupled with that is a real lack of genuine self-acceptance, compassion, and nurture. Because we're a kind of a subset of things, a complexity, and some parts of us perform very, very well, and other parts of us we're still working on. So I think for what it's worth, might be worth considering when I'm coming from externally imposed perfectionistic standards, and probably I bought into that perfectionism when I was very, very young, when I was being told by and figuring out how to be in the world, how to refine myself in a way that got me accepted. And then once I figured out what worked, or at least at that time, I got stuck in that way of doing things rather than being in the present and with adult eyes and with more wisdom as an adult. What's it going to look like for me now? What's enoughness for me in my living? So yeah, I offer you that as I hope that gives you some food for thought, and I think at very least it makes us a little less critical for those of us who've got guilt, shame, inadequacy. This might be a way that starts to help you find more of you, more of your own self-acceptance and compassion, and that to me would be a really good thing. And hopefully will encourage you to keep putting yourself forward in the world. Rather than, well, if I can't get it perfect the first time, I'm not going to try. Rather than I'm going to put it out there. It's the best I can do right now, and I'm just going to keep working on how I can get it better and better and better. think that is one of the things that many individuals who are very are consistent, especially if you're wanting to go down the path of some kind of public life. Again, if at very least go back and look at their early stuff and see what kind of a journey and transition they've been on, and it's that ability to know what you're after, address what you need to address, and keep on keeping on. That's the only way really to improve. That we just keep going. Thank you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening and watching this episode. I'm really grateful. As always, just to close off, if you've been following the Sean Healy Relationship Resourcing Series, watching the videos, and you've subscribed, my profoundest thanks. I'm really, really grateful for your support. If this is the first one of my videos that you're having a look at, I hope you found it helpful. What you'll find is I tend to jump around in kind of lots of different areas of people dynamics because I just find this absolutely fascinating. And I'm just really curious about what works and what builds better relationships. And I'm learning as I go. Absolutely, I'm certainly very much a student of life, and of relationships. So if this helps you, I'm really, really, really genuinely delighted. And if you want to continue to support the series, please, check out some of the other videos if you wish. Would be grateful for your subscription. And if you know anyone who might benefit, by all means, feel free to share. And again, also, just my podcast series, the Sean Healy Tools series. It's available on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, and other podcast mediums. Do a lot of the similar exploration into areas of human dynamics in that medium. And of course, please feel free to check us out at the website emergencetraining.com.au. And if you are curious about me doing an episode on a certain topic, by all means contact me. And as always, thank you to the people who've driven some of these episodes. Very, very grateful. And if I think I know enough about it, or I can pop something out there, I'll have a go. But I wish you every success and happiness and joy in your life. And until we're together on another episode, bye for now.